Hello, thank you for joining. I'm Ingrid, and this channel is here in existence to make nutrition easier for you and reduce some of the overwhelm that comes along with nutrition. I've been there, really not nice to be confused and overwhelmed by it all, but it doesn't have to be like that. And now that I've worked through that and I've got a couple of degrees, I thought I might as well share it. So welcome to number 4 of 6-part series on the fundamentals of nutrition. And before we get into the topic of today, which is fats, I just want to apologise for not doing a video last Sunday, because so it was my birthday on the Friday, and then I was like chaotically trying to finish my masters as well as relax for my birthday, as well as plan and pack for my Australia trip, which was happening on the Sunday. So I'm in Melbourne now, and yeah, it's going great. Lots of good food. I'm seeing people that I haven't seen in ages, which is gorgeous. And then so we're off to Sydney soon, then Townsville and Melbourne, so that's exciting. And yeah, it just meant that last week this video just did not happen, so we'll make it happen this week. And yeah, it's all about fats, and I'm really excited because it's a macronutrient sibling, if you like, for carbohydrate and protein, so the 3 macronutrients. And of course, as with lots of things with nutrition, there's been a lot of controversy over fats, and a lot of people sort of avoid it with the idea of it makes you fat, blah blah blah. But I'm gonna blow your mind and say actually we don't eat enough fats, and they're really good for you, the right ones. And it's all about learning about the different types of fat and yeah, the quality of it, and introducing it to your diet in a way that's sustainable, makes you feel good, satiated, feeling full and satisfied. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today. So first point of call in your journey of becoming friends with fats is we've got to learn about the different groups of them. And when I say different groups, I want you to remember that there are lots of different variations within these groups, and the groups are dictated by the molecular structure of the fats. And this isn't a biochemistry lesson, so we're not going to go into that, but we'll just go by the different names and what that means for us, like how we implement that in our diet through food. And also remembering, like, this is a really core nutrition sort of lesson anyway, in whatever nutrient you're looking at. We don't take a reductionist view with nutrition, as in we don't, or I don't, like to say this nutrient is bad, so you should cut it out completely, you should eliminate every food that has this nutrient in it, because it's going to make you like develop this disease, or it's going to make you do this. Similarly, I don't do this nutrient is so amazing, so it's going to solve all your problems. Rather, we look at the whole diet, as well as your attitudes and satisfaction with food, and your preferences and your activity levels and your goals and all of that, stress, sleep, everything. So it means that we can see all the different complex reactions and relationships that different nutrients have, as well as the fact that our bodies are complicated as well. We don't, so that's what we're going to do. And so the 3 groups that I've been talking about at the beginning are your trans fats, your saturated fats, and your unsaturated fats. Unsaturated fats have 2 very important groups within it. You have your polyunsaturated fats and your monounsaturated fats. But yeah, like I said, there are lots of variations within them, and it depends on how you eat the food, what food you're eating that has that nutrient in it, and yeah, your whole diet. So most foods, most fat saucy foods, most foods that are a fat source have a ratio of those different types of fats. So an avocado would have, which is a fatty food, would have lots of polyunsaturated fats and monounsaturated fats, but not so much saturated fats and no trans fats. And your deep fried fries, or any deep fried food, would have a lot of saturated fats and trans fats, but next to no polyunsaturated fats or monounsaturated fats. And from those 2 examples, you can probably guess which are the healthier fats and which are the unhealthier fats. So the polyunsaturated and the monounsaturated are your healthy fats, and generally speaking, and your trans fats and your saturated fats are your unhealthy fats. So those are the ones that we sort of are linking to cardiovascular disease and inflammation. So we'll start with trans fats because they're quite interesting. And trans fats are primarily found or generated or made in an industrial process during the manufacturing process. So you'll find that in margarines and your baked goods like cakes and biscuits you buy from the supermarket, anything that has like a shortening or a margarine thing, because the trans fat is made through the industrial process. But it can also be made naturally by bacteria, and that bacteria can be found in ruminants. So ruminants being animals like cows and sheep. So you'll find trans fats also in animal products like dairy and meat. Yeah, so, and trans fats have been linked to cardiovascular disease and inflammation, but they've been really useful in the food industry because they allow for solid fats to go solid. So margarine, solid, you spread it, etc. Saturated fats also do that, they have that property, but again, like I said, they've been linked to cardiovascular disease and inflammation. And just so we're clear on what I mean by inflammation, you have two broad different types. There's acute inflammation and chronic. Acute inflammation, say you cut your finger, it gets hot and red, that's inflammation. And it's acute because it's like localized to that area. Similarly, if you get a virus, you get fever, that's inflammation too. It's acute because it's short term. Chronic inflammation is when you've got inflammation over a long period of time, which can be resulting from a series of infections or high saturated fat or trans fat diets for a long period of time. And that is a risk factor or a contributing factor to other diseases like respiratory diseases, arthritis, blindness, heart diseases, diabetes, and lots of metabolic problems as well. However, like I said, we're not doing this whole reductionist viewpoint. We're not reducing trans fats or saturated fats to terrible things that we should never ever consume, because if you did that, then you wouldn't be able to consume avocados, and avocados have those beautiful monounsaturated fats and your polyunsaturated fats, as well as fiber and other micronutrients. So yeah, you wouldn't want to eliminate it completely, and Australian and New Zealand dietary guidelines say that combined saturated fats and trans fats, you wouldn't want to consume more than 10% of your daily calorie intake from those fats. So just for like my math's sake, I'm gonna just use 2,000 as an example, but I'm not advising this. If you are consuming 2,000 calories a day, 10% of that, 200 calories, and 200 calories looks like about, I think I worked out like 20-ish grams of trans fat or saturated fats. And in food terms, that is equal to, what have I got? 4 cups of milk, 3 tablespoons of butter, a couple bars of chocolate, couple tablespoons of coconut oil. So it's quite easy to reach that level, but that's the sort of dietary guidelines that are recommended, so 10%. So list some other sources of different fats. So saturated fats, like I said, dairy, animal products, your processed baked goods like cakes and biscuits and things like that, potato chips and any fried food. And those foods are the ones you want to sort of keep to a minimum. And if you are consuming animal products, then go for your lean meats, and your dairy products, low fat if you want, but look out for the ones that say low fat, but then they pump it full of sugar, because if you take away the fat, it doesn't taste very nice, so they pump it full of sugar to make it more palatable and still have the health claim, which doesn't really make sense. And yeah, so you want to keep those to a minimum, go for the lean meats and things, and then keep your cakes and baked goods to a minimum. Homemade baked goods tend to be better because you're not using a lot of like shortening and things like that. So yeah, just keep in mind. Monounsaturated fats, these are really good for, so every cell in our body is surrounded by a layer of fat, every cell. And that monounsaturated fats are really good for keeping all these healthy and intact, and they're great for our brains and decreasing inflammation and what was the other one? Reducing cholesterol levels. So you can find these in avocados and nuts like almonds and walnuts. And then you have the system unsaturated fat, the polyunsaturated fats. And these polyunsaturated fats are your long chains. Like, remember when I said that the differences between fats at the molecular level. Unsaturated fats are your long chains, and if you've ever heard of omega-3 or omega-6, polyunsaturated fats. So we get a lot of omega-6 already in our diet, mainly from like vegetable oils and things like that. But we need to up our game in getting our omega-3s in. And your omega-3s are the ones that are incredible for our brain and reducing inflammation and things like that, and have been linked to reducing heart disease as well. So also just on this, you can see how having a little bit of saturated or trans fat is okay. Making sure you're getting in your poly and your monounsaturated fats as well, because they can counteract some of that inflammation that's going on. So we can't make polyunsaturated fats ourselves, so we need to get it from our diet, and we can do that from oily fish, which is an incredible source and probably like the number one. So your oily fish are things like salmon, your fresh tuna, mackerel, and your non-oily fish, which don't contribute that much omega-3s, are your things like white fish, like cod. And white fish, non-oily fish, cod, that's more of a protein source, whereas an oily fish is more of a protein and fat source. And yeah, that's what I have to say on fish. And then you can get omega-3 on a vegan diet or vegetarian, but it's harder because it's in a form where our body can convert it to it's in a form that's kind of unusable by our body. We can convert a little bit, but we're not very efficient at converting it into an unusable form. So we'd have to eat a lot of it. But really, if you are following a vegan diet, then maybe looking to a vegan algae supplement is probably a good idea, just to make sure you're getting those levels in. But you can get it from nuts and seeds, particularly like flax seeds and walnuts. Yeah. And most of us will be looking maybe around 3 to 5 servings of fatty foods a day. So thinking about if you're having seeds or nuts, maybe about a tablespoon. And if you're looking for oily fish, then about a fist. And then, again, for oils, probably around a tablespoon as well, just as a general guide. But I'd look to your dietary guidelines for where you are living. And also if you have specific goals, which is definitely going to impact the amount of fat you want to eat, looking to your nutritionist, and also like tuning into how you feel. There's a great study that looked at people consuming different diets, so high fat or high carbohydrate, and there was no correlation to sort of which was better, and people coped differently on different diets. So some really, really enjoyed and saw great health benefits with the high fat diet, but some really didn't. So it's very individualized and personalized, and you should have fun just tuning into what you like. So fats are really good for you, and I'll go into a few more details in a bit, but I want to just sort of outline why we became so uptight about them, which is very sad because fats are delicious and incredible for you, and it really came down to cholesterol. So high cholesterol in our blood, not very good. Cholesterol and heart disease were linked. So increased cholesterol, increased risk of heart disease, and increased intake of saturated fat was linked to increased cholesterol. So you can see how, that is not very good. So the low-fat diet caught on, and low-fat didn't differentiate between saturated fats, trans fats, polyunsaturated fats, monounsaturated fats. So they all got blanketed in together, and the low-fat diet took off massively. And one reason why it was successful, and still to this day, people are still consuming a low-fat diet on the premise of thinking that even if they're not at risk of a heart disease, they're still consuming it. It's also because fat has got more calories per gram, and so the less calories you eat, generally you lose weight too. So that's why it kind of caught on. And the manufacturers sort of replaced fat with sugar, and that contributed to its own problems too. And the food industry funded a lot of research that favoured a low-fat diet to basically push profits. So that's not very good, and it's geared health advice towards a low-fat diet, which is now not really what the evidence is saying. The evidence is saying that polyunsaturated fats and monounsaturated fats can actually decrease heart disease risk and inflammation. They can act anti-inflammatory. Like I said, generally, again, noting that there are different fats within different groups. And yeah, so we've sort of been groomed to think that limiting our fat intake and not prioritizing it as a really key important player in a balanced and diet that we can sustain. We've been told to think that we can't do that, and one reason is because we've been told eating fat means gaining fat, and that just is not the case at all. And in the next couple of minutes you will know why. So weight and fat intake, food fat, when we put on weight, we can put it on in different ways. So we can increase or decrease our carbohydrate stores, and I've spoken about this in my last video if you want to check it out. But so if our carbohydrate stores in our muscle, in our liver, decrease or increase, obviously our weight will decrease or increase. When we decrease carbohydrate stores, we also get rid of all the associated water weight that was stuck to those carbohydrate molecules. So we also decrease or increase our water weight when that fluctuates, and we can increase or decrease our adipose tissue, which is our fat tissue, which is like the fat. And there's two different sort of areas that we can put on adipose tissue. We've got subcutaneous, which is like under the skin, and then visceral fat, which is on our organs. And so a really key message here is that you can gain fat and still be on a low-fat diet. And it's because it's not about what we eat in food terms, it's about the energy that we consume. The excess energy we consume will be stored in our body as fat. Doesn't matter whether that energy came from carbohydrates / sugars or it came from fats. So if you consume fat, like another way of looking at it, consume a fat molecule, that fat molecule will not be the same molecule that ends up on your back, legs, arms, face, whatever, because when we intake fat, we break the molecules apart and we release the energy. If we have too much energy, then we store that energy by putting the fat molecules back together, storing the energy within those bonds, and then that molecule goes and exists as adipose tissue. Yeah, and that's not necessarily bad. Like, having adipose tissue on us is vital for especially women. Females have a higher adipose tissue percentage, body fat percentage, because we have more hormonal reasons for that. And so adipose tissue is there to keep us warm. It's there for energy supply. Constantly we are always burning fat. It's there so we can absorb and store nutrients like A, D, E and K, vitamins A, D, E and K. And it's there to help with hormone regulation and mood regulation. And not adipose tissue, but our brains are made of fat largely. And like I said, our cells, every single one of our cells has got a fat layer all around it. So it is vital that we have an intake of fat. And yeah, it's just really good for us. And also in terms of behavior, consuming fat at most meals can improve your satiation, so your feeling of fullness, and also our satisfaction with meals. There was a study done looking at how satisfied people were with their breakfast meal, and those that were more satisfied with the taste of it went on to lead healthier food behaviors throughout the day, and those that were not satisfied with it, and it was like bland and tasteless and things, they went on and consumed way more carbohydrates and way more energy than the other group. So it goes to show that adding a bit of avocado, some nuts, some olive oil is going to actually help your behavior, your food choices later on in the day, as well as just feel nicer, taste nicer. Fat's really good, it's really palatable because it's got a lot of energy in it. So our body's like, yeah, I love that. I need energy, to keep us alive and survive. And on that as well, so I just want to talk a little bit more about the energy in fat, because it is true that per gram, fat has more calories, more energy inside it than carbohydrates and protein. Fat has 9 calories per gram, so does alcohol. Alcohol also has 9 calories per gram. Carbohydrates and protein have about 4 calories per gram. But we do not sit there and eat calories. We sit there and eat food, and we eat it with other foods, and the food has other nutrients in it. And then, so it's all complicated, and then we put it in a complicated system where our bodies produce a whole heap of different hormonal, digestive, emotional responses whenever we eat. and like pair that with our individual metabolism and our activity levels and our stress and the quality of sleep that we're having. It's not just about calories in, calories out. Fat is very important and has got so many different incredible things it can do. Like all I've just said, it shouldn't be reduced to just calories. So in terms of what I would really want you to sort of take away from this in terms of food and what you can do like every day in terms of introducing fats into your diet, like good quality fats, and focusing on those polyunsaturated and those monounsaturated fats, whilst also not eliminating and being scared of saturated fats or trans fats, is really sort of think about every meal, every snack as a sort of balancing act, and balancing all those different macros and not cutting out any of them, and introducing a fat source to like every single meal, every single snack if you can. So I'm just going to go through a few foods and a different sort of takes on them. And the first one I'm going to start with is olive oil, because this was a question that came up I asked on my Instagram, and sort of like what to do about oils. Oils are very complicated, and I'm going to try and find a resource and link it below, because I don't think I can explain it via words. It's easy to have pictures and stuff. But olive oil specifically, if you're going to buy olive oil, go for the extra virgin olive oil. The less like virgin it gets means the more processed it is. And the more processed it is means that it has a lot less of the polyphenols, which are the really amazing things in olive oil. So you might as well spend a couple extra bucks and get the extra virgin olive oil. Else you might as well just get sunflower oil or something else. But yeah, so cooking with olive oil is great, really good for you. Sunflower oil with high oleic acid, if you can see that on the label, is also good. Yeah, so olive oil, great fat source and things. And also think about using nuts and seeds creatively, sprinkling it on salad, sprinkling them on your toast, sprinkling them, go for seeded bread, sprinkling them on in wraps or curries and anything really, just to add texture. It's going to make you feel more full, and you're going to get those fats in. In your salad dressing, using oils like flaxseed oil or hemp oil. They're really great. If you are vegetarian or vegan, again, I do recommend you go talk to a nutritionist and just to sort of get that more personalized care and look at your options for making sure you're getting all those omega-3s in. If you do eat fish, then like I said, about a fist of oily fish and having at least one fish meal a week is great. I think getting fats, I'm not farting, it's a chair. Getting fats in at snacks is quite difficult. Well, it's not difficult, but maybe it's harder. But going for seeded crackers, having peanut butter and an apple instead of just an apple, or having hummus with olive oil and crackers or carrots, or having a handful of nuts, really good. And yeah, avocado is my go-to. It can be expensive, so I don't want you to break your banks. And also not being afraid to drizzle a bit of olive oil or drizzle a bit of one of the other drizzle a bit of the other oils I've mentioned, walnut oil, flaxseed oil, hemp oil, onto things. Can be really good too. But I feel like I kind of rambled a lot in that, but like the take homes with that is that it is complicated, but we have oversimplified it, and so I think we should be welcome to adding in some of the nuances and discovering actually there's different types of fat, and we shouldn't blanket them all under one unhealthy label, and we should enjoy it and see how we feel with different levels of fat intake, and see actually are we going to be more sustained? Is our hunger going to be more our fullness going to be more sustained, and are we going to enjoy our food better if we add a bit of fat, whilst also knowing that our brains will be healthy and our cognitive function and our heart health will be better and our skin will be better and what else will be better? Our inflammation levels will be lower, and knowing that those polyunsaturated and those monounsaturated fats are going to be really helpful for our long-term health, and not being scared of the saturated and the trans fat. Having them in our diet is just a small percent, like I said, 10% of your calories. It's just going to help you be able to sustain that diet, I don't want to call it diet, lifestyle, your diet longer. And lastly, I'm going to do a whole video on energy, but I do want to mention about being fat and how we as a society and a lot of us internalize, like me at some point, have associated being fat with just being like the worst thing in the world. And it's so liberating to finally be able to be like, it's just not the worst thing in the world at all. And actually, our narrative around being fat is very dangerous and not helpful. So a few ways it's not dangerous, or no, it is dangerous and not helpful, is that it's damaging for the people who are fat, who have a higher body fat percentage, because they are judged, they are ridiculed, they are discriminated against, they are given unfair treatment because whatever is going on. They may have an underlying health issue, they may literally be healthy and that is just how their body sits naturally, or they may be just a higher body fat percentage to you perhaps, and then your perception of them being fat. Anyway, so they're discriminated and not treated well at all in society, which is just ridiculous to me. And secondly, it's damaging to people who are constantly yo-yo dieting and going through cycles of dieting all the time. That kind of stress on our body is no good, and probably maybe doing detrimental and counterproductive things to what they're wanting to do. And yeah, not being connected to your body and being in a constant state of wanting to reject, wanting to change your body, like without sounding super hippy dippy, it's just not how humans are meant to live. Like, we're meant to be connected to each other, meant to be connected to our bodies. And yeah, the idea of being fat is the worst thing in the world is causing a lot of mental health issues and just stress all the time, thinking about I constantly need to change, having these constant resolutions to change. I'm out of breath, but it's exhausting for those people. And yeah, continuing the narrative of being fat is the worst thing in the world is perpetuating this need to just constantly reject our bodies, and yeah, needs to change. And it's also damaging to our health. Even if we do like succeed and achieve weight loss, trying to stay in a state that our bodies naturally do not want to be in, and if you have to restrict, if you have to be stressed in social situations and cut things out of your diet, and you have to over-exercise, and you have to build this not good relationship with exercise and food to not be fat, because fat is obviously, if you're fat then you're going to be lazy and gross. Like, if you're constantly having to make your life hell to achieve weight loss, that's not healthy, that's not good for us, and yeah, not good. And in the last one, basically you can be healthy and fat. I think we don't realize this, but you can be healthy and have a high fat percentage. You can literally be not stress-free, but minimize your stress, have good sleep, eat lots of fruit and veggies, and minimal saturated fat, trans fat, and high polyunsaturated fat and monounsaturated fats, and you can still be healthy and fat, and you can still enjoy physical activity and be flexible and be strong and have high body fat percentage. So I feel like that's something that we need to unlearn too. And of course it depends on your goal. Like, if you are training and you are eating a certain way to achieve a aesthetic, I don't know if I want to get into this actually, but and that's okay, but where does that come from? Is it coming from a place of, ew, being fat is the worst thing ever and all fat people are gross and lazy? Then I don't think that's healthy, not gonna lie. So yeah, that's my rant for that. I just thought I needed to say it because I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently, and I would highly recommend The Maintenance Phase. I'm going to put it in below because it is eye-opening, and it really sort of picks apart this calories in, calories out, and fat phobia and our obesity epidemic and things like that. And I think it's really important that we all have that understanding and we unlearn some of these really damaging narratives around being fat. And also it means that we get to eat more fats and enjoy better lives because they're really good for us. And yeah, that is all I have to say, I think. Thank you so much for joining, and yeah, I'll see you next week.